Om. Om. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मत् आचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यश्रेष्या निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविर्मयेदि वेदस्य मा आनिष्टः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेन अधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्ततामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु मामवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पक्ष्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः तुष्टुवाग्वं सस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृतश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति न स्त्राक्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पति ददातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिप्रीतं गिरिरिव ऊर्ध्व पवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणग्मं सवर्षचं सुमेत अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Narayan, everyone. So, somebody.
It's going to do the summary.
Have a list.
Yes, wait. No, not Sanchita. Rituj, I think you should do the summary. You joined the class late, right? Last time. Let's do the summary.
So, the summary from last class is that we started off with Shloka 3 about how from the form self to the formless self, and how we had discussed about how from idol worship, how one transcends to the unmanifest. So Shloka 3 and 4 talk about the attributes of the formless self, which they mentioned 7 of them. And then after that, Shloka 5 talks about the trouble with which, the unmanifest self and the formless self to identify it with, because being of body consciousness, being aware of our body, it is, we aren't able to comprehend and understand this concept of formless self. And for that reason, Shloka 5 discusses about the difficulty. And also in Shloka 4, before we had also discussed about the knower becoming the object of the knowledge, and how, this formless self is that the knower, knowledge, and the process of becoming one. That is that you can't differentiate the two, because that was their thing. But then, of course, Shloka 5 talks about the trouble with attaining that kind of knowledge. And the idea was that so it gives us a route out of it, being people of, for us, the karma yogs, and how we are body conscious, that the best way to do is to find divinity in everything we do, in every interaction, and with every action. And that's why the last line that you guys had pointed out of Shloka 5, that in the course of the journey of life, such a devotee receives the assistance of the Lord always and at every point. So we get the power from the Lord at every point in that regard. And then we then discussed Shloka 6 and 7, where like Shloka 2 of chapter 12, this was gives us guides of the 5 characteristics of a devotee, for someone who could connect with God. And the first one was a person who looks to none except the Lord for support or maintenance. Second is whose volition is completely subordinate to the will of the Lord. The third is performs all actions like a faithful servant, carrying out the orders of the Lord for his pleasure alone. Fourth is such a person has no solicitude for the outcome of the actions. And the fifth, for everything is done by such a person with the strength provided by the Lord and only as an agent of the Lord. So it's just that we also discussed how to every interaction and to every VVGP is an opportunity to grow, and how it is a lesson as well as a blessing. And everyone has their own journey, and my journey cannot be compared to someone else's journey, and everything is unique to our own circumstances. And how to the interactions of the VVGP, one should go into the root cause of why there was anger or any sort of, say, irritation, and to understand that through that. And then we ended with Shloka 8, which talks about how we have to fix our mind onto the Lord and the intellect resting in Him. And that can happen through constant practice and, as I say, constant contemplation of the omniscience and omnipresence of the Lord, and the conviction that it takes. And at the end, it ends with the Shloka 8 ends with the fact that if your mind is fixed in Him, the Lord gives that assurance that if you have your mind fixed in me and the intellect rests in me, then the devotee abides in Him. So that's how we ended the class.
Excellent summary, Rituj. Excellent summary. A couple of technical points that I'll point out. At the beginning of the chapter, he does not talk about how to transcend from the worship, the sagun form of worship to to the formless aspect. There's no such thing. He's just saying there are two parallel tracks. Okay, so there is no concept of transition from one to another, because then transition from one to another gives you a sense that one is inferior to the other, which is exactly the question that Arjun had asked in the first shloka. Correct? He had asked this question, and then and then what does Bhagwanji say? That there is actually no difference. That's what he's trying to figure out. He's like this, then, and second thing, the difference between shloka 2 and shloka 5, it isn't the same, right? Small technical difference. In shloka 2, he's explaining the features of such a worship. And in shloka 5, he's talking about what are the actions, what does this worshipper look like? How does he act? How does he behave? So it is about the worshipper and his actions, whereas shloka 2 is about the features of such a worship. What does this worship?
You mean shloka 4 and shloka 2, right? Like shloka 2 and shloka 4.
Shloka 2 and shloka 6, 7, sorry. Shloka 6,
Oh,
7.
6, 7. Okay, 6, 7. Okay.
Yeah. Shloka 2 is talking about the worship, and shloka 6, 7 talk about the worshipper and his actions.
Yeah.
Okay?
Like even shloka 4 also talks about the worship, right? Shloka 3 and 4 also the characteristics of the formless self.
This one talks about the characteristic of the nirgun, nirakar aspect of Bhagwanji. So because sagun, sakar, we understand. We know what is sagun, sakar, because we can relate to it. We can perceive him with our actions and with our indriya, with our senses and everything, right? But we don't understand nirgun, nirakar. So he's trying to bring out what does worship of nirgun, nirakar mean. Okay, so shloka 2 talks about sagun, sakar worship, characteristics of sagun, sakar worship. 3 and 4 talk about sagun, nirgun, nirakar worship, which then tells us that, boss, it is impossible for all of us to even entertain the thought of a Nirgun Nirakar worship. And so, I mean, we can't even begin to comprehend it. So it is very, very difficult, near impossible for us to indulge in that. And so he then goes on to say that you should, instead of trying to do the Nirgun Nirakar for the Karmi Yogis, the best path is Sagun Sakar worship. And superior to that is Bhakti Mishrit Karmi Yoga. That's the path that he defines for us. Not just Bhakti. Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga is what he has defined as the right path for us. So he's not saying, please go and sit, like, he's not asking, we are not Mirabai. Mirabai is not our path. So you don't just go and sit in a mandir and that's all that you do. That is not our path. Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga is our path, and that is what is being explained in Bhakti Yoga chapter as we progress, right? So 6-7, he explained that. So the piece that the sentence that Rituj pointed out, that such a devotee will receive assistance of Lord always and at every point. But what should the actions of such a devotee be like for him to receive this assistance at every point? So then we figure that piece out, right? He tells us those 5-6 points. And then he says, now, what do you have to do to attain me? Shloka 8, we started off 8, then continuously over 9, 9, 10, 11 and all. We will talk about what does a devotee have to do? And now he's going to tell us all these different things. So in 8, he tells us that you have to fix your mind on me and let your intellect rest in me. What does that really mean? Your intellect resting in me essentially means that your intellect is constantly engaged in reading scriptures. First of all, you need to understand what Bhagwanji is trying to tell me, right? So you have to indulge. How do you know? Where is Bhagwanji ki Vani? It is sitting in the scriptures. So you read Gita, you read Bhagavatam, you read the Upanishads, you read the various Vedas. So you understand what is it that Bhagwanji is asking me to do. And then your mind, your intellect is constantly engaged in contemplation. Manan and Nidhi Dhyasan has to happen constantly. That's when your Manan and Nidhi Dhyasan happens, then your intellect firmly understands, believes that Lord is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. Okay, so that is the belief that your intellect will fully imbibe into. And that concept is called the intellect is resting in the Lord. Okay, then the next step is your mind must be fully focused on him, which means that wherever you look, chapter 7 to chapter 11, wherever you look, you only find him. There is no other place that your mind goes to. Whatever VVGP you interact with, your mind is fully fixed in only finding him in every VVGP. Such a devotee will always attain me. That is what Bhagwanji is saying. Now, the next shloka is about, okay, what if you're not able to do this? Okay. So we'll start with that. We all have to, we had to learn shloka 1 and shloka 2. So we should ideally do this at the beginning of the class so that, we can do this. Maybe in the next class, no, before the summary, we will do the shlokas, and then otherwise it kind of like it will break the continuity of the class, right? So Abhinav, next time, instead of doing the summary, let's do the shloka revision, and then we do summary and other things. Okay. For this class, maybe we do it at the end. Otherwise, it will break the continuity.
Sure.
So 10:45. No, 11:30 sharp. We'll stop. We'll do the takeaways and the shloka memorization. Right, shloka 1 and 2. Okay.
So I just wanted
8
to.
is done.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to add something. But let's do the connection first.
Correct. Because we've not started yet. So okay, we'll start from bottom up. So Sanchita, you want to read shloka 9?
The Lord now describes the course to be adopted if the mind and the intellect are not equipped for his contemplation.
So wait, let me just add before we start reading, right? Shloka number 8 to 12 are basically talking about how to connect with Bhagwanji, how to express
Attain him.
bhakti, how to be in bhakti. Now, the question to ask is, why is it important to be in bhakti? Anyone wants to share what their understanding is of why is bhakti important?
What I feel is because it's that's the only permanent thing in our lives. Everything else is ever changing. So being connected to VVGPs, which are constantly changing and nothing is constant, the only thing that one can rely on, if someone should rely on, because anyways, attachment of any kind is the root cause of disappointment, but that is Bhagwanji. And if you have bhakti to all the duties that we do, because as they said that it's impossible to for us to go for the formless self. So through our karmas, we have that bhakti yoga and we connect to God while we do our duty, then that is the best thing because then we're doing it for God and we're not attached to the results and we just dedicate it to God. That and if I personally keep working thinking that God is seeing this, then that would be the best thing. Like as it was explained in the last class, that the way we treat everybody should be the same way. It shouldn't be like our own children we treat in a certain way, or our family and our health, or someone who say, we tend to have a different treatment for things. It should be the same, and we have to be equanimous. So I think that bhakti aspect will bring us.
So let me, 100%, absolutely right. I will just give you an example to visualize why bhakti is important. Imagine you're making mixed vegetable in a pan. Mixed each of the vegetables, different vegetables are different VVGPs in the world. What bhakti is the oil in the pan so that the VVGP doesn't stick to the pan. The vegetables don't stick to the pan. We are the pan. We have to interact with the VVGP. We don't have a choice. But if we don't want the VVGP to stick to us, for our karma not to keep adding, that is why we need bhakti. That is why we need bhakti. Bhakti is that layer between the VVGP and us, so that we don't have to face the consequences of these actions because we're not engaged with it, with that bhav.
Just another example, I don't know if it works, like it's the ozone layer which protects us from the UV rays or the VVGP, in the sense that, I don't know, scientifically, I don't know, it must be not right, I don't know, but it's just that protection layer, as you say. That's a very good example with the non-stick.
So what shlokas number, shloka 8 to 12.
Actually, there's one more example that I remember Kumar and Shalini Didi have given in the past. Bhakti is like oiling a pan, okay? And nothing sticks
I
to
just
the
said
pan.
that.
Oh, you just gave that example? Okay, because I was listening to what Vedanta is saying, so I didn't listen to it.
She's obviously oiled her brain, so nothing I say sticks onto her. I am the VVGP to Tuina.
Protecting myself from that.
That's how she protects herself from me. Good. I like it. She
Yeah,
also put
Bhagwanji
oil in her
said-
hair today. She put oil in her hair today. That's why.
Bhagwanji sent Vedant as the VVGP to protect me.
So shlokas number 8 to 12 are very important because it talks about how to do bhakti in different states of mind that you have, right? So shloka number 8 itself, so like not all the time can we fix our mind to God. We all know it. Sometimes we all know it's like standing on tiptoes. We keep falling, right? We keep falling. It's very hard for us. So numbers 8 to 12 highlight, whenever you go through a crisis, these are the 5 shlokas for you to read to understand how to connect to Bhagwanji depending on your state of being or state of mind, right? In shloka number 8, one other element that I wanted to highlight was, it's very clearly mentioned here that mind and intellect are more important than senses. Ritual is not as important as your spiritual being. Working on your mind and intellect, that is more important than lighting a diya or any other ritualistic act that you do, right? And that is being highlighted here. Fix your mind onto me, fix your intellect onto me. And why is that important? Why is that more important than rituals? Why is that more important than the act or doing certain actions?
Which will come in Shloka 12.
It will come in Shloka 12, but I'll just highlight it, right? It's because when we interact with the world, we're interacting with the sansar using our senses, right? But our mind can experience everything even if our senses aren't engaged. And the perfect example of that is dreaming. When we dream, we can experience almost all of our senses that we need to inside our mind, which means all that we need for us to connect to Bhagwanji is our mind. That is all that we need. Everything in this world we experience in our mind. I think a couple of classes ago, Smita had asked that question, right? About something, and I had said that everything, we never engage with the world, we engage with the perception of the world.
In our mind.
In our mind. Everything we experience in our mind. Right?
But then the question will come then, if that is the case, then why do we have to do anything else at all in the first place? And the next set of shlokas will exactly explain that.
So, and for the mind to experience Bhagwanji, the mind is guided by the intellect. So you cannot have your mind in Bhagwanji if your intellect is in Sansar. Your intellect also has to be towards Bhagwanji, and only then will your mind get directed towards Bhagwanji.
Because you've seen that Rath ka picture, right? In the Rath ka picture, the senses are the horses, which are being controlled through the reins. The reins are the mind. And who holds on to the reins? The Sarathi. The Sarathi is your intellect. Okay. And if the intellect is connected to the Lord, then that means the Lord is holding on to the reins of your mind. Okay.
Right. So there may be more. Just 1 second, Michelle. I'll come to you. So there may be moments in your day when you do feel your mind and your intellect are towards Bhagwanji. But we all also know we cannot sustain that the entire day. We don't. Right? So the next shlokas talk about, okay, what if you cannot keep your mind and intellect equipped? What do we do next? And now we'll talk about the next level. Yeah, Visalakshi.
First of all, welcome back, Visalakshi, to the class.
Thank you. So many things it happens. I cannot able to control anything. Sorry. Apologize for that. So I would like to share this thing just I've learned. What is the difference who not doing or meditation or sadhana, who are not doing? I've learned recently. Just I would like to share with everyone. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So your intellect is our soul is connected to the intellect, right? That's why we get the guidance from the intellect through the soul. The soul is guiding to the mind, right? So everybody having how to say last thing the Shaguni mind, everybody having the Shaguni mind also, everybody having Krishna mind also. If you do proper sadhana, if you do proper meditation, then the Shaguni mind, if saying something to Krishna mind, if you do meditation, the Krishna mind will guiding the proper way to guiding towards the Shaguni mind. If you're not doing meditation or sadhana, then the Shaguni mind will take a part. The Krishna mind is not listening to the Shaguni mind. It's whatever mind is saying, you start doing the outcome is you are doing whatever mind says you're doing. But when you do sadhana, like japa, whatever, it helps. So through the intellect, it helps a lot, right? So that I've learned, so I would like to share.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think we'll talk a bit more about that.
And just a few more things, right? Like just to correct, like we have to be very careful about where we read, what we read, and how we assimilate into what we are reading. Okay, and be careful, more careful. Like we are in chapter 12 now. So we can't be making the mistakes that we would make when we're talking about the general hierarchy of things, as we did in the first few chapters, right? So let's get more, let's pull ourselves up a little bit more. Soul is not connected to intellect. It cannot be. You've seen the Srishti Chakra that we've drawn, right? The 23 elements.
Mhm.
Soul sits atop the entire Srishti Chakra.
Right.
And it is not connected. Saying that it is connected is a fallacy in itself because they are completely different. Okay. Soul is the only part which is conscious. That's conscious. Everything else below that is not conscious, and it is jada. It's a jada prakriti, right? And this jada prakriti seems like it is being powered by the soul. It is not connected. It only seems to be connected. And the whole prapanch, the whole illusion comes from the fact that people feel as if like this moving jada piece is actually chetan. They feel like this is conscious and this is life, and that's the whole illusion.
Mhm.
All right. So
Mhm.
there is no connection between soul and the jada prakriti.
So,
But
when-
the soul is going to is closest to intellect. If you look at the entire hierarchy, you have intellect, and you have soul, and then below that there are three what do you call it? There is Raj, Sat, and Tam, the three the gunas, and from the gunas comes the intellect, and then everything else follows that. So intellect is closest to soul, and so it reflects. It only reflects.
it's not connected.
Yes, it is like it is not connected. It is like a mirror which reflects the sunlight, but it is not connected to the sun. There is no connection between the two. Sun is doing its job of putting its energy out there, light and warmth, and the intellect, which acts as this acts as the sun, it reflects that energy on the rest of it. Then it reflects energy and controls mind. Mind will control the senses. That's how the entire hierarchy flows. And again, the difference between the two, I had given this example before. I really need you guys to go back and keep repeating. But listening to sadhana once, listening to the class once does not help. You have to re-listen to it again. If you're missing the classes, you must listen to the class. That's your duty towards the satsang. Okay. We had said that the nature of intellect is such that it can reflect the divinity of the soul of Bhagwanji very, very closely. How does that happen? It happens, to give you an example, it's like intellect is iron. Intellect is made of iron. Your mind and your senses are made of other metal. Okay. Now, if a magnet is placed in the vicinity of iron, in the vicinity of copper, then the iron is able to get magnetized by the magnet. Okay. In the vicinity of the magnet, the iron particles align themselves, so they act as if it were a magnet. And that iron will act like a magnet and is going to get attracted to the magnet. And if you have other iron filings around that iron piece, they will get attracted to the iron as if it is magnet. Okay. But a copper piece will not get magnetized. That is why the nature of intellect is such that it is able to magnetize itself in the presence of magnet. Okay, that's how it is able to, that is why it is closest. It is considered closest because the nature of intellect is that in the presence of divinity, it will align itself to divinity and then is capable of giving instructions to your mind, which then controls the senses. And hence it feels as if all the answers are coming from your intellect. And when we have that fallacy that there is a connection and that this seemingly conscious intellect is actually conscious, but it's not conscious. You remove the magnet from the presence of iron, the magnetism completely goes away. Okay, it is so intellect is like that. It acts the way it does in the present because of the power given by the Lord. But we do not understand that. It only seems to be Chetan, seems to be conscious. And it is because of that issue that we become, the whole disillusionment is because of that. There is no intellect that is acting without the power of the Lord. Yeah, very, very important to understand these technicalities. Now we are on chapter 12. We have to be very clear about this. Okay. So, Shloka 9. Who was reading with us? Sanchita, right? Yeah, Sanjana.
Yeah, I've read the connection. You need to.
Yeah. I'll do the
Rituj.
Atha. What's with Rituj?
I just wanted to say one thing. Sorry, just thanks, Vijay. So the thing was about as um, Abhinav mentioned about the concept of dreaming. You know, when you're conscious, of course, your senses are interacting with the world, and when you sleep, you know there are different grades of sleeping as well. I think we were discussing this in another class. Menika Chachi was discussing this that. So when you sleep, you're a light sleeper, then you're a deep sleeper as well. So when you're dreaming, your mind is still working, and it's still, that's how the dreams happen. But even you sleep in such a deep state that you can't even dream then. That's another level of, even your subconscious, your mind and your mind has also slept at that time. And but then there's something which tells you that you slept so well that you wake up and you're like, oh wow, this was such a great sleep. It's such deep sleep. So there's even something more subconscious in that aspect of the mind and intellect, which I think is the Atma, which basically tells you that, even that there is something that is always awake in that regard. So I think that also might explain what we were discussing.
Yes, so that is the method that is used by in Vedanta to prove that there is something beyond your mind and your intellect, the 4 states of sleep, right? Okay, Shloka 9. Atha chittam samadhatum
अथ चित्तं समाधातुं
न शक्नोषि मयि स्थिरम्
न शक्नोषि मयि स्थिरम्
अभ्यासयोगेन ततः
अभ्यासायोगे न ततः
मामिच्छाप्तुं धनञ्जय
मामी चाप्तुं धनञ्जय.
Please read.
If, however, you are unable to fix your mind steadily on me, then by the yoga of constant practice, cherish a desire to attain me. Cherishing the desire for the Lord's attainment. When an attempt is made to fix the mind on the Lord, it is frequently thwarted by the tendency of the mind to stray into thoughts of sense objects. The Lord says that when this happens, the mind should be brought back to his contemplation again and again. Constant practice of this endeavor is called the yoga of constant practice. Recalling the harm which results from a contemplation of objects of senses and instead repeatedly thinking of the Lord's omnipotence, faith in the Lord takes firm root. All problems which a human being faces are fully known to the Lord, as he is omniscient. All apprehensions that beset the mind are also known to the Lord, as he is omnipresent. There is no problem in the world that he cannot solve, for he is omnipotent. Besides, he is a well-wisher of all beings, and while doing good to all, he expects nothing in return. With the growth of this conviction, the feeling of devotion to him gets strengthened, and this continuous endeavor is called the yoga of practice. In this,
इसमें अभी क्या है कि the first type of a person where they are saying your intellect rests in the Lord and your mind is continuously fixed on him. That means at no point of time is your mind wavering from the Lord while you are still doing duties in the world, which means you're interacting with hundreds of different VVGPs constantly, but your mind is still fixed in him, meaning what? That you are constantly only interacting with the Lord. You're only seeing him everywhere. Now you're saying that mind, the nature of the mind, okay, the nature of the mind is to hold on to something. And when it holds on to something, it holds on to it very, very, very strongly. Because of lots and lots of ages of our habit of holding on to sansar, what such a person may find is that he's unable to actually fix himself on the Lord at all times. A VVGP will come. Immediately, you would say, oh, this person provoked me, or this situation is difficult for me. And immediately our equipoise, our sense of center completely goes away. We experience it all the time, right? It can happen right after puja. It can happen right after a session, right? So the next step for us to do is, if that happens, then your mind has to be brought back to the contemplation again and again. You get away from the center, and then your intellect is going to help you bring it back. How does the intellect bring it back? The intellect is able to bring it back is because it is firmly rooted in Bhagwan Ji. So it is firmly convinced that Bhagwan Ji is omniscient, he's omnipresent, and is omnipotent. So he understands what my mind is going through. He understands the VVGP I'm interacting with, and he's omnipotent. He's the one who will solve all my problems. So the only person that I should depend on for any kind of solution is him. So your mind then brings your mind back to fix themselves in the Lord. So something that you saw suddenly as unfavorable, then your mind comes back, your intellect intercedes and says, no, that's not how you look at the situation. And you again start to see God even in that situation, because you find something to learn from, you find some blessing in it, and you're able to fix yourself back into it. Okay. And this is called the Abhyas Yoga. You are practicing constantly, yoga of practice, abhyas yoga. You do yoga through the abhyas practice.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll phrase this differently, right? All of us at some point have probably gone for a run, right? For a 5-kilometer run or a 10-kilometer run or a 2-kilometer run, all of us have gone for it, right? Going for that run requires us to control our mind and our intellect. To make that choice, to be ready when we're on that run, we're fully focused, one step at a time. We're not giving into tiredness. We're not giving into pain. We're not giving into any of that. We're focused and we're going for a run. Now, imagine you as a runner versus a professional marathon. What is his desire? His desire is to have a particular goal, which is to win a particular championship. Right? Because his desire is so much stronger, who is going to be the better runner, you or him? Chances are it's going to be the professional person, right? And because his desire is so strong, who is thinking about that goal even when they are not running? It's likely going to be him, because his desire is so strong, right? So what Bhagwan Ji is saying, when your mind and intellect are not fully engaged, it's because you don't have a desire to be with me. So for you to be fully engaged, to have a fully engaged mind and intellect in me, you need to first have a very deep desire to want to be with me. Just like a very deep desire for a professional athlete will dictate his entire life towards that particular outcome. So in a way, he's also saying there's only one desire we are allowed, and that's the desire to be with him. Right? So then the next question that naturally comes up is, how do we desire Bhagwan Ji? And that is $1 million question. That's where that's where I am at, to be honest. How do I increase my desire to want to be with Bhagwan Ji? And the answer said in this shloka, or in these particular shlokas, is fill the intellect with the right knowledge.
Correct.
You keep filling the intellect with the right knowledge, your desire to want to be with me will be greater. Knowledge fuels love. There is no love without knowledge.
Correct.
Even with your partner, you may be attracted to them at first, but you fall in love with them over a period of time once you get to know them. And that's why love with your partner will only deepen, because you see the best of them. Right? You see the things that other people will not be able to see. Right? So same thing with Bhagwan Ji. Use the intellect to fill in the right knowledge, and that will automatically fuel the desire to want to be with him. And that's that next stage.
Which is why first in the Bhakti Yoga, there are 6 chapters in Bhakti Yoga. And in the first 5 chapters, he has not talked about Bhakti at all. He's only tried to help us understand who he is, how to see him, how to connect to him, how to find him in VVGP, right? How to understand his essential nature beyond just what can be directly perceived through our senses. So he's just spent 5 chapters saying, boss, understand me and who I am. And with that understanding, as Abhinav said, we develop the love. That's a natural process to it. Right?
Just a very small point, like when you talked about desire, there's something which was pointed out when I would write my learnings or my takeaways. I'd always start with the term I need to, I need to. And then I was corrected at rather than saying I need to, I said I want to. So I think that thing of, it's not like a medicine, but it's also I should have that desire from within that I want to do this. So I think that's what I connected with when you shared.
Very, very good.
That's a beautiful thought.
Yeah.
Beautiful thought.
Actually, there's a very big difference in the internal state of energy when you move from I need to I want to. Your internal state of energy is I want to is your own volition. So you take full responsibility for what you are about to experience, whatever that experience may be. When you say I need to, then automatically you're ceding your control from your internal locus to an external VVGP, saying that external VVGP has a control over me and is directing me, is pushing me to do something against my own will. Right? And that immediately creates friction, that immediately creates a negative energy, and that immediately gets to and we do this all the time, right? A lot of times you go I don't feel like doing this, but I need to do this in office and at home with our friends. I don't feel like hanging out with them, but I need to hang out with them. I don't feel like talking to such and such person, but I need to do that. Right? And sometimes circumstances are dictating us to do that activity or do certain things, and then we feel like we are at the mercy of the space of that external VVGP. It's a very negative state to be in. It creates a lot of negative energy inside of us. If you accept that VVGP and accept that this is Bhagwanji's hand in it, and Bhagwanji has created this, he is this VVGP. He's present in every pore of the VVGP. So whatever I'm going to do or whatever I need to be here is through his energy for his pleasure only. So I will do it. It is for my uddhar. So then you go from I need to I want to for my own uddhar. And your internal state of being will change. You should really try it. Practically, it's a very, very powerful tool. I have used that a lot of times with super, super amazing results. So Rituj is absolutely right about that need to. You should catch yourself every time you say, I need to do this, and change it into I want to. There's another line here which connects to this, which says, he is a well-wisher of all beings and he does good to all. Okay. So Bhagwanji is a well-wisher. First of all, your intellect has to understand that Bhagwanji is my well-wisher. If this entire world, this entire Prakriti, the entire space that we are living in, if that is his energy, if this Maya is his energy, and he is my well-wisher, how can Maya act against his wishes? It cannot. It cannot. So if he is my Suhrud, he is my ultimate benefactor, he is my ultimate well-wisher, then his energy is also constantly looking to serve me for my best interest. Which means every VVGP that I encounter in this Maya is acting in my best interest. I stop it from acting in my best interest. I stop it from taking me to the next best level in my life, for my welfare, by throwing in my own will in the middle. And then saying, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be this person. I am not happy with this. And then you try and thwart the natural course of action. Right? And that's when the negative energy comes in. I go from I want to I need to. Got it? We'll read the rest.
Also, sorry, just with that, I need to so sorry. Sorry, Sanjita. About the ego being rooted, is that also true when you say I need to? It stems from your ego?
Of course, there is ego involved.
Ego
Because
is involved.
if you
It's
dissolve
very
the
controlling.
ego, then you don't have any will. Then whatever comes, you will just find what is my duty in this situation and you will do it. There is no ego there. If there is no ego, there is no kamna, there is no desire. So there is no outcome that you are looking for. And so whatever comes, you find what is my duty, I do it. The moment there is ego, then there is sense of separateness. Then there is your ego, your will, and then there is my ego, my will, my choice, my desires. Right? Yeah, Kakul.
Sorry, Divina, just quickly, given that the fact that we need to fill our intellect with the right knowledge, and I'm taking the prayers and the right satsang, right scriptures are tools that help us to do that. How do you separate which is the right scripture and which is not? Like, how at this stage when you are in chapter 12, you try to filter out, because there's too much of these also around us. How do you filter out which is best for you and which is taking you in the right direction? Is it also something that God will kind of present in front of you when you are ready?
So we're already following a particular lineage, right? Which is from the Gita Press, Gorakhpur, right? So from a scriptures perspective, we are always say that any book from Gita Press, Gorakhpur, we know the lineage, we know where it comes
Lineage
from,
is pure, yeah.
and we know that purity of that knowledge is intact. So that's why we always recommend you to read multiple books from Gita Press, Gorakhpur. And if you need more recommendations of different types of books, then happy to do so.
But
Right.
remember that most of these scriptures are Guru Gamya, right? So you have to go via somebody helping you to read them and understand them, right? That doesn't mean that you shouldn't read them on your own, but you'll just find it very difficult to really understand the tattva,
Yeah.
the essence of those books. Like Bhagavatam can be read as a book of stories, allegories. You can probably reading on your own, especially while you're reading Gita, you will understand quite a few concepts. But when you actually have somebody like Uncle Ji teach you Bhagavatam, every single page will give you aha moments like, oh, I never understood it that way. Oh, I never thought this is what it's supposed to mean. Right? So another thing here is we have to be very careful about how we spend our time, right? And this is something that most of us do, right? All of us are actually guilty of that. अभी यहाँ से एक लिंक आ गया, अभी वो गुरुजी आ गए, अभी ये हो गया, right? We are constantly doing spirituality shopping, right? So what happens in spirituality shopping is that you end up spending a lot of time which feels right at the top end, like we are doing the right activities, right? I'm listening to satsang, I'm attending classes, I'm reading a lot of scriptures. Shloka 12 is going to very clearly address this point. All these actions are various practices. The practice has to culminate into knowledge, and that will only culminate into knowledge when we spend time to do swadhyay, when we do manan, nidhi dhyasan, chintan on what I have listened to or read to or heard. If I'm not spending time doing that manan, chintan, nidhi dhyasan, then all the practices are completely waste of time. They are a karma kand. You're doing all those practices, it will never lead to attainment of Bhagwanji. You have to now start spending time on Chintan and Nidhi Dhyasan, which means that you have to start understanding what does that principle mean in my daily life? How does it connect to my me story? That is Nidhi Dhyasan and Chintan. Okay, so we'll come to that as well on Shloka 12. So I would say avoid doing too many things at the same time, listening to that doesn't mean that, oh, you shouldn't listen to Swami Chidanand, you shouldn't listen to Sadguru, none of that. I'm not saying that, right? By all means, but be aware that you have 24 hours in the day. Are you really taking out time for, and are you really indulging in Nidhi Dhyasan? That is the deep work. Without that deep work, every other practice makes no sense. But even a single practice that leads to Chintan and Nidhi Dhyasan is very good.
And
right, all of this has to be taken in a context, right? I'm not saying don't do practice. We are always saying do these practices, do nam jap, do puja, do satsang, because certain amount of this is absolutely necessary for us gross beings to constantly be able to connect to Lord, to bring ourselves back to this. Okay, but there is a difference between being optimal to where goes over the board, and that what is optimum is going to be different for me, is going to be different for Abhinav, is going to be different for you. Only we can tell ourselves. That is why you have to really understand these principles, because only you can tell how that particular principle applies in your circumstance. Yeah. And this is where the more we do these things, the subtler the intellect becomes. The closer it becomes to divinity, the cleaner our antakaran becomes, the easier it is for us to determine where is that line of truth and falling into sansarikta. All right, so we'll read through the rest.
Yeah. In this shloka, the Lord says that this yoga of practice would enable the aspirant to cherish the desire for the attainment of the Lord. An important point to remember is that there is a basic difference between the attainment of the Lord and the acquisition of worldly objects. As explained above, the attainment of the Lord comes only on cherishing an intense desire for his attainment, but worldly objects can be acquired by exertion and effort only. No efforts are to be spared for efficient performance of a duty, but it would be futile to waste human energy for acquiring the transient objects of the world. This is the point which this shloka underscores.
So the most important thing, what will cause us to bring our mind's attention back when it wavers constantly, is this intense desire that I want the Lord. I really want to know the truth. I really want to submerge my will into him. Without that desire, no amount of karma kand, no amount of anything that we may do, any study that we may undertake, it will not lead to his attainment. Because actions do not lead to his attainment. We had covered that in the last few classes as well, where we said that why does Gita not end on karma, on the 6th chapter, where we close the karma yoga? Because actions will never lead to his attainment. Why will it not lead to his attainment? What does his attainment even mean? We don't need to attain him. He is not somewhere out there that we need to acquire him and get him inside of us. He is already inside of us. He is us. I am Bhagwanji. But I do not look like or act like Bhagwanji should, because there is that Atma Deep, that light inside me is covered by multiple layers of agyan. So I need to cleanse, I need to take these layers of agyan away and throw them out. It's not about acquisition, it's about tyag of the learnings, the tyag of the manyatai that we've had over a period of time, the tyag of the agyan, the tyag of ego, tyag of kamnas, the desires. It is that tyag, the giving up, what is important. Karma yoga helps in that giving up. It helps us in cleansing of the antahkaran. That is why karma yoga is important. But ultimately, it is when the agyan goes away and the gyan dawns, that is what causes us to attain him. The word attain is actually kind of wrong, because it isn't acquisition or attaining him from outside as much as him realizing, us realizing who we really are. Get it? And for that realization, we need to not just indulge in karma kand and not in karma yoga. Karma yoga is essential, absolutely, like I said, but we also have to have an intense desire to get to know him. Without that desire, nothing will be achievable. Yeah, Nena.
About duties and actions which are futile. How do you filter that? Like which I mean, it's different for individual stories, but any broad thing you can say where you know which is your duty and which is not, which is just a futile action, like, in your daily life. How can you even
Yeah, so duties are
broad
everything that your VVGP presents to you. Okay.
So
Action is when you go out to find actions. The moment you're going out, if first two things, if you're looking to change your VVGP, you're indulging in wasteful actions. If you're going out to do seva, you're wasting your energy. It's an action and not seva. But whatever your VVGP presents to you in a swabhavik manner, in a natural course of action, whatever your life is at present and will continue to evolve into, that VVGP will present to you your duties. When you do those duties as an agent of the Lord, for the purpose of just cleansing yourself without any attachment to any outcome, whether it is respect to anybody or anything in this world, then that action will become a seva. Okay.
So I'll add, for how do you identify whether a duty is a futile duty or a relevant duty?
There is no futile duty. A duty is a duty.
The way to identify it is by inquiring on its purpose. There are a lot of things we can easily garb under duty, which is not duty.
Correct. So those are
Right?
actions.
The only way to identify it is purpose. What is my purpose here? And is the purpose of this particular action taking me closer to my divinity? Is it allowing me to do seva for people around me? Or is it increasing the divinity inside of me? Is it filling me with the right knowledge? Those are the only two things we are meant to do in this world. Even a tamaguni activity of maybe watching TV or taking a holiday or going for a sleep or whatever, all of this is only to ensure that tomorrow morning you are fresher to attain your divinity and get your duty. Your body is rested. Your mind is rested to take on the fresh task. So everything, every action that you interact with has to be evaluated for its purpose.
For its purpose, and again, very important,
very often,
we do whatever is coming to us. We don't have to go and search for new situations to attain our divinity.
Like very often, I find myself in situations where I'm doing it for pleasing other people. Right? I can't say no. So now I'm stuck in a situation where I can't say no. Right? And those are things then you want to evaluate. Because those eventually rise up your irritation and negativity and all of those things because you've not set the boundary for yourself. That makes sense? Let's continue. It's almost 11:30. What time is it?
Yeah, it's 11:30.
Okay.
9.
We did a record one shloka.
Seriously? Yeah, we just did one shloka today. Oh wow, okay. That is a record for our class, even for our class.
And I was telling Tuina that, oh my God, this chapter.
We'll do up till
we'll
14
do
today,
up
and
to
the
15
next class
today.
we're done with this
And
chapter.
the next class we'll finish it, and then in 3 classes we'll have finished the chapter. But man proposes, God
disposes. God disposes. Yeah. Okay. We can only prepare. Ultimately, the result is in his hands, right? Right here you see what you want to create, and then what actually gets created. They are very different, and everything is his play. But again, that doesn't mean that we prepare for one shloka, right? We still have to do the full duty of preparing, and then whatever happens in the class happens. Right? Okay. So let's do the summary first, and after, sorry, not summary, takeaways first, and then we'll do the shlokas, the first 2 shlokas. So takeaways, quick, 1 minute practical takeaways. We only did 1 shloka, so they're
I can start. Oh, Kakuli. Like Kakuli. Okay, just a very quick one. What connected with me was how you mentioned about the intellect, the mind, and the senses, and how the intellect is reining in through the reins, the mind, and through that, the senses, how we're interacting. That resonated with me. And how we have to, the intellect, my intellect has to steer back, steer back the mind from, to always be fixed in Lord. So it's always, I have to keep like, that concept was something that resonated, and the fact that to be fully engaged, and I need to also the need and want, and about the desire to want to connect to God, and how I have to, and that way of want to convert from need to want. This one of the solutions is to fill myself with the right knowledge of, my intellect with the right knowledge, so that since it's controlling my mind, to rein it in always towards God and always be directed. And I think it's like a horse when they race as well, they have those blinders. So I think that focus should always be Bhagwanji. And while discussing this, the difference between discover and invent, and the fact that we have to just discover God because He's around us. It's not, we don't have to invent this concept of wanting to connect. So I think that was something.
Absolutely.
So my takeaway is very important. What I understood is that your intellect and your mind have to be aligned. And your intellect, it cannot be that the intellect is in the samsara. So you have to, your desire should be so strong that your intellect finally gets aligned to the fact that it is only him, and both the mind and intellect, when they are together in the same place, will you see the bliss of God. And the second thing which came from Tuhina is very important, and I'm understanding this now also, that Maya is actually his creation. So every VVGP is his creation, and hence I need to find out why this was given and learn and take away from it. And like as you said, either it's a lesson or a blessing, and keep contemplating on it through my Manan Nidhyasan and all these things to go a step forward. Yes.
Can I go next? See, for my big takeaway is that how to engage that mind and intellect to have that deep desire and to have that goal. So we have to be convinced of our goal, and so that intellect is being convinced, and then it can direct the mind well. That is my takeaway. And one of the things I read from Paramahansa Yogananda book I wanted to share about the devotion. He mentioned that human love is the only thing what the God wants, because we have free will and we have a lot of blockages. So we cannot give it freely. But that is the only thing he is longing for. So and so when we kind of increase the devotion in us, that is where when we align with him. So that's what I want to share.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
For me, it's about Nam Jap, Nam Jap throughout, right? Like one tool that we will use to get ourselves aligned and empty our vessel or clean up our vessel is through Nam Jap continues.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, so I think for me, I think what you said, that, it all starts with the desire to attain the Lord. And once we have that desire, then, all our actions, focus all our actions through Swadhyay, Nam Jap to actually cleanse our system. I think it's all starts with desire, and then taking those requisite actions that will help us, attain or realize or cleanse our system is what really stood out for me.
Absolutely. See, desire is an extremely powerful. Desire is also created by Bhagwanji only, no? It is a very powerful, it has very powerful energy. And then we keep saying desire is the root cause of all problem. Desire is the root cause of problem. Remove desire, remove desire. So the words, there's a lot lost in the words. What is being said is not lose all your desires. You cannot. Desire has been created as an energy form by the Bhagwanji. It will always stay in us. The only thing we can do is, as Sanchita said, that desire has to be transmuted to desire of Bhagwanji. Use the same tool. Desire is a tool. It's an energy. Whether we use that desire as a tool to get connected, to get stuck to sansarikta, or we use the same energy, same tool to attain Bhagwanji. That is where our intellect, our discernment has to come into play. The Vyavasayatmika Buddhi has to come into play, which will say this tool, this energy must be utilized to attain Bhagwanji. So the only desire worth having is desire of attaining Bhagwanji, desire of finding ourselves, desire of finding the divinity in ourselves. You know? Very nice.
Okay, I'll go next. So I think what I get is the Bhakti Mishrit Karma Yoga, because I think that's the essence of the discussion that we are having. I think nobody is seeking the devotion. That doesn't come very naturally, that we are all seeking the devotion of, that how should we be very big devotee. But I think how to do all our actions with complete sense of love, affection, and devotion is what we all want to do, right? And for that, our biggest anchor is the support that we receive from Bhagwanji by doing the right action. And second, I think what I've been also trying to practice and what is also coming out is to remove all the negative clutters, or to, simplify things by removing and focusing on the right thing. Because as you said, spirituality shopping, and there is a lot of information, but I think we already have enough information through this book and through a couple of things that we've been asked to write, read 2 shlokas, do nam jap. So then we really don't need to go out and look for anything else, but just to practice this and try to simplify and focus on only a few things to kind of get the results that we are looking for.
Absolutely. 80-20.
80-20.
Right? 80-20.
Right? 80-20.
Yeah. Okay.
Shall I?
So for my takeaway for this class is like, we needed to use our intellect to guide our desire to follow God, or our strong desire, that underlying desire to attain moksha or attain Him. That's a mindset that we'll have to go to. And by attending all these classes and doing Nididhyasana and all those things, we cleanse our mind and we focus on the ultimate truth or the reality that, to attain Him at the end.
Yes. Thank you, Anita.
Shall I go? Yeah, the discussion of the summary actually helped put the whole chapter in place for me. I did not individually, I think when I was reading, I couldn't place it properly, the purpose of it, and ultimately the purpose of bhakti, the actual purpose of bhakti in our spiritual practice, where it helps us to stay disconnected from all the VVGP while doing our duties. That was the takeaway for me, I think.
Yeah.
And also, yeah. And the purpose of intellect, how it can, by filling it with the right knowledge, it can guide us in our daily practice. That's about it. Thank you.
Rizala.
Yeah, my takeaway is day to day how the purpose of the purpose should be right. What we do every day, day to day life also. So the purpose should be right, and then we have to implement not only the like reading knowledge. We have to implement how much we can, like every situation, every moment. So consciously we have to implement whatever we learned.
Beautiful, beautiful. So if there was just one sentence that we had to do to summarize just today's class, right? It is transmutation of desire. The desire for that transmutation of desire from sansaric things, petty things, small things, to the desire for Bhagwanji. And how are we going to do that? Through intellect which rests in him. Because that intellect, the Vyavasaitmika Buddhi, must tell us that it's like a small child who loves to play with toy cars. And those toy cars are very, very important to him. But then when the child grows up, he understands that, oh, if I can have this really big and real car, why would I then want to have a small toy car? Correct? So we are all like little children holding on to our little toy cars. And the use of the intellect is to really understand, oh, this is just a toy car. There's a real car out there that I can drive. So I don't need to go for these petty, small, transient happiness or pleasures when I can get something that's blissful and everlasting. So move from that toy car to a real car. And then that desire transmutes. And once that desire transmutes and you understand in your intellect that this is the real thing, then you will never desire. After that, even if somebody gives you that little toy car, you're like, no, I don't need this. Right? So that's the key message for us to take away. Yes, Rituj.
Just what you were discussing about how having from a bird's eye view vision to a bigger vision, like to step back and see the situation. And also, it's funny, like there was a forward that just came which discussed the difference between mindful and mindful, like MINDFUL and MIND space FULL. So that thing about our mind being just with the VVGP being concorded there, and just we have a mindful dedication towards one thing, and just that clarity and having a completely not not an empty mind, but having a mind which is just directed to one thing, like which is divinity and God. I think that is interesting. It just came like that. I was like, it was just, I thought I should share it. So
No, that's a very strong point. Because mindfulness can only happen when there is space that is created. And that's something that I struggle myself with a lot. Somebody who's as Rajoguni as me, I tend to fill my day with constant set of activities. So for me, that whole nivritti and letting go of activities to create that space where that silence, wherein the real nidhi dhyasan and real connection happens, is very important. Thank you.
Okay, should we do the recitation?
Recitation of first two shlokas. So maybe I will start. Okay.
Just do shloka 2, no?
No, both first and second. Last time we did not do that properly, right? Okay. Arjun uvacha evam satat yukta ye bhakta swam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Shri Bhagavan uvacha maya vesha mano ye mam nityayukta upasate nityayukta upasate Shraddhaya paryupetaha te me yuktatama mataha. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we'll start from top of the screen. Rituj, you go first.
I haven't memorized, but can I read it out? Is that okay?
Okay for today's class, not okay for the next class.
Okay, I'll go. Should I say Athadvadashodhyaya or no need?
Just look
No
one.
need. Okay. Arjuna vacha evam satat yukta ye bhaktasvam paryupasate ye chapayaksharam mavyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha.
Ye chapyaksharam avyaktam.
Ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Shri Bhagavan uvacha maya veshaya mano ye mam nityayukta upasate shraddhaya petas te me yukta tamamataha.
Is that paryopetaha? That sa is not going to be pronounced. Uska sandhi vichhed kar denge, right? Paryopetaha. And then te me yukta tamamataha. Yeah. Okay. Kavita?
First shloka I'll try without seeing. Second one with the book. Arjuna uvacha evam satata yukta ye pakta swam paryupasate echapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Shri Bhagavan uvacha maya veshya mano ye mam nityayukta upasate shraddhaya parayopetaha te me yukta tamamataha.
Nice. Smita?
Likewise, I'll try to read. I'm trying to memorize, but it's not as simple. But yeah, I'll try. Arjun uvacha evam sata yukta ye bhakta astava evam satata yukta ye bhakta stavam paryupasate ye cha bhakta stvam.
Bhakta.
भक्तास्त्वाम् एवं सततयुक्ता ये भक्तास्त्वां पर्युपासते ये चाप्य अक्षरम् अव्यक्तं तेषां के योगवित्तमाः ये चाप्य ये चाप्य अक्षरम् अव्यक्तं
Okay. Don't do chapya aksharam. Chapyaksharam. Put them together. Okay. Not chapya aksharam. It's chapyaksharam. And then avyakta.
श्रीभगवानुवाच मय्यावेश्य मनो ये मां नित्ययुक्ता उपासते श्रद्धया पर्युपेताः ते मयुक्ता तममताः.
Visalakshi, you can read. Read just the first two shlokas.
Yeah. Arjunavacha evam satya yugatya ye bhaktat sattva.
Okay, you read with me. Visalakshi, I'll read. You follow.
Yeah, sure, thank you.
Arjunavacha
Arjunavacha
evam satat ye
evam satatyu yuttaye
bhaktastvām paryupasate.
bhakta tasuvam swat
Bhakta
bhakta
stvam
swam bhakta swam
paryupasate.
paryupasate bhakta swam paryupasate.
Very good. Ye
Ye
chapyaksharam
chapyaksharam
avyaktam.
avyaktam
Ye chapyaksharam avyaktam.
ye chapaksharam avyaktam
Tesham ke yoga vittamaha.
teja shoke yoga
Sham.
vittar
Tesham
tesham
ke
tesham ke
yoga
yog
vittamaha.
vittamaha tesham ke yog vittamaha.
Very nice. Very nice. Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Maya Veshya
Maya Veshya
Manoye
Manoye
Am.
Am
Yeah. Maya Veshya Manoye Mam
Maya Veshya Manoye Mam
Nitya
Nitya
Yukta
Nitya Yukta
Upasate.
Nitya Yukta Upasate
Nitya Yukta Upasate.
Nitya Yukta Upasate
Shraddhaya
Shraddhaya
Parayopetaha
Parayopetaha
Te me
Te me
Yuktatama
Yuktatama
Mataha.
Prataha
Mataha.
Mataha
Shraddhaya Parayopetaha
Shraddhaya Parupetaha
Te me Yuktatama Mataha.
Deye Yuktate Mahataha
Te me Yuktatama Mataha.
Deye Yukta Ma
Yuktatama. There is double time.
Yuktatama. Okay, Yuktatama Maktaha.
Okay. So I'm hoping that everybody is using this opportunity to revise for themselves, right? You're not just being passive listeners to others' practice. Like practice. This is an opportunity. You're anyway sitting here. Might as well every time somebody else is reciting, you recite in your own mind. That's the only way to, like, you don't need to set aside 20 minutes a day for this. If you involve it in your daily activity, right? And revise it every day, you will, like, eventually this will become easy. Kakuli? Sorry. Anita first.
Okay, I'm going to try to not see and say it.
Oh, nice.
Arjuna uvacha evam satata ye bhaktastvam pariyupasate echapyaksharam avyaktam teshan ke yoga vittamaha.
Very nice.
Shri Bhagavan uvacha maya veshya mano ye mam nityayukta upasate shraddhaya parayopetaha te me Yuktatama.
Excellent, Anita. Excellent. Very nice. Very inspiring. Thank you. Kakuli?
Yeah, I'll read the first. I tried to memorize the second. Arjuna uvacha evam satata yukta ye bhaktastvam paryupasate ye chapyashak याचप्यक्षरम अव्यक्तम तेषां के युगवित्तमा वित्तमा
Vittamaha.
वित्तमाः
Very nice.
श्री भगवान् उवाच मय्यवेषो मनो यामां नित्ययुक्त उपासते श्रद्धया परयोपेतास्ता ते मे युक्त मामता.
Nice. Two things here. Parayupeta, the sir will not be pronounced. Okay. We separate the two words there. So the sir becomes her, the word of her, the sound of her in the end. So Shraddhaya, Parayupetaha. Okay. Petaha, the halant in the end. Then Teme Yuktatama Mataha. That also has halant in the end. Her ka sound has to come up. Okay.
I'll read it once again. Then
Sure.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Veshamanu Yamam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Paruyupetaha Te me Yukta Mamamata.
Teme Yukt Tama. Yukt Tama. Mataha.
Te me Yukta Tama
Mata.
Mataha.
Not Mataha. Mataha.
Mataha. Okay.
The Yukta Tama Mataha, until you practice it enough number of times, feels like a bit of a tongue twister. But keep practicing, it will roll off the tongue eventually, right? Very nice. Thank you. Sanchita?
Yeah. I'll read the first one and try to do the second one through memory. Arjuna uvacha evam satata yuktaye bhaktasvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yuga vittamaha. Shri Bhagavan uvacha maya vishya manu me mam nityayukta upasate Shraddhaya parayanupita me yukta tamamataha.
Again, the last one, Parayupetaha. That's where it ends. Then the next one is Te Tamamataha.
Shraddhaya parayupita te me yukta tamamataha.
Parayupetaha. Halan. Okay.
Okay.
Use geetachanting.net. Okay. It is
I do that only.
Okay. Naina?
I'll try, but I might have to peek in between. Arjuna uvacha evam satatayuktaye bhaktastvām pariyupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Shri Bhagavan uvacha maya veshya mano ye mam nityayukta upasate shraddhaya parayupetaha te me yukta tamamataha.
Very nice, Naina. Very nice. Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, is that me, Vijay?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Arjuna Uvacha Evam Satatayukte Yukta Ye Bhaktastam Paryupasate Ye Chapi Aksharam Avyaktam Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaka Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Veshyamano Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaye Paryopastha Te Me Yukta Mamatah.
The last line is Vijay, repeat. Shraddhaya paryupetaha
Shraddhaya Paryupetaha
te me yuktatama mataha.
Shraddhaye Paryupetaha Te Me Yukta Mamataha
Yuktatama
Yuktatama
mataha.
Mataha.
And again, Shraddhaye nahi hai, it is Shraddhaya
Shraddhaya
paryupetaha. Correct.
Paryupetaha. Okay.
Very nice, very nice. Excellently done. The next shlok, the next class will be shlok 3.
No, will be quiz.
Oh, quiz is it?
Yeah.
Next class. Okay, so chapter 11 quiz. In the next class, I guess we will do, it's a very long chapter. So we'll take next two classes for the quiz. Having said that, shloka 3 still needs to be done for the next class. So shlok 1, 2, 3 all put together. Okay, so
Don't do 3. We don't have time for that. We can't do quizzes and this. We'll just take too much time. We'll go into 3 classes. There's 42 shlokas.
okay, so we will do shloka 3. Everyone do shloka 3. Okay, and we will do that revision. Also, every one of you send me after memorizing the recordings of shloka 1, shloka 2, shloka 3. See, you are going to memorize it now. You may forget it 3 months down the line, and that's okay. When you reread it 4th month, 5th month, a year, 2 years later, it will come back to you very fast. Right? So you have to learn. This is very, very important. So please, shloka 1, 2, 3, send me recordings after memorizing. And then in the next class, if required, we will do shloka 3 on the screen. Or we may not, depending on how much time we have. Okay, but I want to see recordings from everyone. First 3 shlokas. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. We have to do closing shlokas.
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ ॐ ॐ